And good Shabbos to you wherever you're watching us, whether it's in your homes or at somebody else's home, around your kitchen table, right before you light the candles. I hope it's a good Shabbos for you. This week, our community, and I don't mean just the CBI community, but the Jewish community, lost a mensch. You may not have known his name, but his name was Aaron Feuerstein, and he was 95 years old. 95. He was known as a mensch. He actually had a title called the Mensch of Malden Hills. And there's a reason for that. You see, Mr. Feuerstein owned a factory. His grandfather started this factory, and he and his family ran this factory in Massachusetts. And in December of 1995, there was a bad fire, and it meant that the factory had to come to a complete stop. And there were 1,400 workers who didn't know what would happen. And when the 1,400 workers came to get their paycheck on that they thought was their last paycheck after the fire, he announced that he was going to continue to pay them until the factory reopened and throughout. They were never going to miss a paycheck. And because of that, he got national press. He sat next to Hillary Clinton at one of the State of the Unions at which President Clinton spoke, and he became the conscience of the business world for many years. His philosophy was that you could maximize profits and maximize the benefits of your workers. And so he was known as a mensch. And he passed away sadly this week at the age of 95. He knew what power was, and he knew how to use it. In contrast to that story, there was another story in the Jewish news this week about Hebrew Union College that you may not have seen. I don't know if you saw it. It was about decades of abuse in HUC of many of the people that championed women's rights in terms of ordaining women ended up being men who abused women. And the point of bringing that up is not to blame, not to pile onto HUC, but to just show what power can do. And so we have these choices. You can be like Aaron Feuerstein, or you can be the corrupted power. So what does power and privilege do for us? In our Parsha, it starts out with a man who feels powerless, who feels afraid for his own life. And so he runs away from his brother. He runs away to a different land, and he would tell me if you've heard this phrase before. He was a stranger in that land, a stranger in a strange land. He probably thought people were strange, but that's a different song. So he goes to work for his uncle, for Lavan. And Lavan says, work for 7 years. I know you're in love with my daughter. Work for 7 years, and then I'll give you my daughter. So he works for 7 years, and great, the wedding comes, and it's not the daughter he wanted to marry. So Lavan, his uncle, comes to him and says, oh, yeah, I tricked you. Work for me another 7 years. And Jacob, feeling powerless, doesn't argue. But by the time he's done working for his uncle, he's become more powerful. He has amassed wealth. He has made his uncle and him a lot of money and a lot of success. And so he manipulates it so that when he leaves, his severance, which he'll call back pay, his severance is to take the best of the flock. Because he's got power now. So he doesn't put up a fight when he's powerless, but when he's got power, he does. And then he continues to wield that power. He does it with his family. If you look later in the Parsha, you see his wives fighting over his affection. His wives, one claiming they're victorious over the other because this man, Jacob, who's now become this powerful patriarch, this powerful man, has power over people. And it doesn't finish here. It ends with the way he treats his children and the power dynamics he creates there. Who's the favored son of Jacob? He had a Technicolor Dreamcoat. And no, it's not Donny Osmond. Joseph. So Jacob, when he's got no power, doesn't do anything, doesn't put up a fight. But as soon as he finds power, he finds ways to manipulate, to divide people. As opposed to his son, Joseph. Joseph starts out powerful as well, just like his dad, will continue this power. He's got this Technicolor dream coat. He's going to, tell his siblings that they're going to bow down to him one day. He's going to do all these things. And then his power is stripped from him. He's thrown into a pit. He's sold into slavery. He's powerless in Potiphar's house. He's powerless in prison afterwards. But he never loses himself. He finds power again. And this time, the sins of the father are not repeated. This time, when Joseph rises to the second most powerful man in Egypt, arguably then, if he was the second most powerful man in the world, instead of seeking vengeance on his brothers, he feeds them. Instead of amassing all the wealth and keeping all the food for himself, he feeds a country. Because he knows, as they said in Spider-Man, that with great power comes great responsibility. So we have a responsibility. We sometimes feel powerless, but we're not. Because even though we find ourselves laid low sometimes, we still have so much. And with that power that we have, the ability to speak out, the ability to do for others, that becomes our responsibility. So the next time you feel powerless, the next time you feel like you don't know what the right thing to do is, you have a choice. You can be like Joseph, or you can be like Jacob. You can divide and manipulate, or you can help others. Shabbat Shalom. Baruch Tiyah.